What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me with Buzzing with Marlo live, live, live. I say it again, live. I hope everybody's doing well. I have got my guest today, Vinnie, the Funkmaster Vineyard. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. How are you, man? I like that nickname, the Funkmaster.
Well, I was just talking to Lenny Kravitz. This whole situation going on with Jason Mimosa and Lisa Bonet has got him jacked up. And so anyway, I'm sorry I was a little distracted there. He's crying and singing the blues. Do I have a chance? Anyway, all that stuff over there in Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the compliment. Yeah, Funkmaster V comes from when I was a bass player and a touring funk and hip hop band, and that parlayed over to my wrestling career. So it was a good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Vinny. Tell the Buzzing with Marlo fan base a little bit about yourself.
Well, right now we're in the middle of making me and my company, Big and Funky Productions, which is me and my tag team partner, Big Luke. He's a 7-foot tall giant. He's out of Chicago. We're making 6 horror comedies about the Smoky Mountains. And we're about to release our second movie called WJHC AM, which is about a small-time radio station in La Follette, Tennessee. And what would happen if Y2K... You kind of look like a young guy. I don't know if you remember Y2K, but what if Y2K was the end of the world and the Lord came back and the people that didn't get evaporated with the Lord had to fight the Denzians of the night. So it's a horror comedy about that. It's almost autobiographical except for the whole, Jesus coming back and everybody dying. Other than that, my relationship with the South and and getting into radio when I was in my early 20s, and the only job I could get in radio was at Southern Gospel radio station. It was quite a culture shock for a Yankee.
Where are you from?
Baltimore.
Okay, I was born in New London, Connecticut. So yeah, I know the struggle.
East Coast, yeah,
yeah. And then I found myself all the way in Florida. So thanks to my dad being in the military.
South is great, but
yeah,
there's some things.
So we're that terminology, damn Yankee, you know.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, I love the South, but there's some stuff with a little bit of a 3 on it. If you catch my drift, it's a little weird sometimes, but there's mainly I dig everything down here for the most part.
Hey man, so you getting that radio gig and stuff like that? Like, what was that like a last resort type thing for you, or did you always want to try to get something with radio or something?
I've always wanted to be an entertainer, and I was a stand-up comic first, and I wasn't very funny when I was young. I wasn't very creative. I had good comic timing. I was good with the theory, but you have to either have life experience or a lot of creativity, and I had neither. So I didn't stay in stand-up comedy. Now, at 47 years of age, I could do stand-up comedy because I had a crap ton of life experience. So I parlayed. I wanted to be funny and do skits and do little voices and stuff. And so I got into radio, and the only places that would hire me, because I didn't have a degree, and it was about to be the end of radio anyway. We didn't know it, but that was when radio was dying in the 90s. Yeah, the only job I could get was like with really right-wing conservative radio stations, like really crazy stations. Like they thought Rush Limbaugh was liberal, that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then I got a job at this Southern Gospel radio station, which was also pretty wacky. So, yeah.
What did you learn from that?
Well, I learned that politics is a bunch of bullcrap used to separate us. Hardly any of it is based on truth. But there's also truth on both sides. And we live in a divided country right now where half the country is fearful of the other half, and the other half is fearful of the other. And the truth is, both are more similar than what they realize.
Right.
Conservatives and liberals are kind. They're decent people. They want their families to do well. They want their friends to do well. They want to live. They want to screw. They want to eat a steak. Or unless, I guess, you're a liberal, you may want to eat a tofu steak. But the point being, you just, at the end of the day, you want peace. You want your kids to do better than you did. You want your friends to be happy. You want your family to be happy. You want to make a niche in life. And both they're very similar. There's very few differences between the two. And sometimes those are substantial. But I learned that there's truth on both sides. I mean, one of the weirdest things is this radio station, not the one I'm in the movie, but the one where I was at a conservative radio station. It was an unmarked building. They're all the time afraid that the media was tracking them, which was hilarious because it was only a 1,000-watt station. They didn't even get, I mean, I would lose the signal of this radio station sometimes leaving the driveway. I mean, it was like the government wouldn't give a damn about this station. But they would talk about white tanks and black helicopters and stuff. And one day, and this is actually part in the movie, the transmitter was very far away from the radio station. And so you had to put in a 30-minute program to run down. This guy made me wear a suit. I was in a suit during the summer, Tennessee, in a field. I had to run down to the transmitter, sweating balls, to go to the transmitter and take a reading, which was bull crap. It was like, okay, that's minus 0.075 today. We definitely needed to see that. Anyway, I would take readings at the transmitter and run back, hopefully before dead air happens. If I had an injury, if I was bit by a snake, if I was attacked by marauding banditos or whatever in that field, we would have been screwed on the air. But I had to run up the hill. I was in good shape at the time. I was young guy. But one day when I was down there, I came out of the transmitter and swear to God, there was a black unmarked helicopter floating about, I don't know, 1,000 yards away, just sitting there staring at me. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. Maybe these guys are right about something, because they had no U.S. markings on it. There was no USA. So anyway, I got fired from that job eventually, and I got fired from every job in radio I ever had, which most guys in radio get fired. But then I started doing other things. But anyway, this movie is a time capsule of sorts. Before the horror movie element starts winding up, it's almost an autobiographical movie.
Right.
Yeah. Back in that time.
Hey, that's crazy. Like I've had numerous people that have worked for radio and stuff, and they've literally said exactly what you said. There's no way of you literally just quitting it. It's you getting fired to basically leave it.
Yeah, this radio station, this movie's based off this new movie we're doing. I tried to kill the station manager in a very passive aggressive way. I knew she was a diabetic, and I put sugar in the coffee filter. I don't know if I should say that out loud. She's passed away since then, but the awkward thing is she caught me. Me and this station manager hated each other. We were different people. I don't even know why she hired me. And again, this relationship is in the movie. The first lady you hear talking in the movie is this woman. This woman's based on, and throughout the whole movie, we have this. We're it's a rivalry of sorts between the both of us.
So is it kind of like how when you say horror movie, is it like kind of like Scream version horror or 1,000 Corpses type horror?
Our movies are unlike any movies anybody's ever seen. It's
okay.
It's campy in a way, but it's not B-movie. This is more like if you had Clerks, the movie Clerks from Kevin Smith, in a Southern Gospel radio station, And then when Y2K happened, it basically turned into a just some sort of campy horror movie. But the effects are pretty good. And I'm a wrestler, and my girlfriend in the movie, the girl that plays my girlfriend, she's a wrestler. And then the main bad guy in the movie, or the main guy he's a sad guy, he's a pro wrestler too. Actually, almost everybody, a lot of people in the movie are pro wrestlers. But anyway, the Demon is a pro wrestler that I have to fight. So I get in about 3 fist fights trying to save the radio station or whatever.
It sounds like myself. A Scott Pilgrim type movie.
It's got there's different levels. It's like a bunch of one-on-one fights. So pretty good. The first movie we did called The Hike, which is available on Amazon Prime. My tag team partner is 7 feet tall, and we had a fist fight that was the longest 4-person fight scene in movie history. It was about 9 minutes, but it was a paranormal infused pro wrestling match essentially. So that was pretty fun.
That's actually pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
You've been mentioning pro wrestling, so how did you get in professional wrestling? This is a wrestler to wrestler, so yeah.
I played music for a lot of years, and I played and I toured the South and the Midwest with a band that basically just played hip hop and funk music. Our niche was we were 3 white guys doing black folk music, and that was kind of the hook on that. So at one point I was playing a really big concert in a town called Cookville, and the next night I was in Nashville on the roof, Graham Central Station. Hundreds and hundreds, if not over 1,000 people at this concert, and I'm up there yawning. And Joe Namath, I'm a New York Jets fan, unfortunately, but Joe Namath always said, when you're yawning on the football field, it's time to retire. And I was like, there's guys up here who really would want this gig. And I just got tired of the joke. It was, 1,200 shows. It just started to bore me. As cool as all that was.
Out, basically.
Yeah, that's right. So at that point, I was still young. I was still 32 or around there. And I was like, I could still take a stab at wrestling. I think I'd be good at it. I was a state judo champion. So I was familiar with how to grapple people and that kind of thing. And I felt like I could infuse that psychology into pro wrestling because some guys do that with the martial arts and stuff. And so I picked it up real fast, and the guys were like, man, you got this down pretty good. And I never was a mark for myself. I always was business first, and I always tried to fill in the cracks. And that's why I was valuable. It was like, for example, a friend of mine just got back into wrestling. He hurt himself 9 years ago, and he's getting back into it at 40. And I don't know why he's doing it. But he sent me a message the other day. He went to a local wrestling show, and he said that 6 matches were on the card, and 6 heels went over. And I just was like, wow, way to send him home happy. In the world depressing enough. I mean, it's like there's a lack of psychology in wrestling these days. It's unbelievable. Yes. It's like, let the good guys win a couple, for crying out loud. What in the hell are you doing? And so
to make the good guy believable, you need to eventually have the good guy win. But I'm back and forth on that as well, because like how the story is basically written, because I was a good guy. I lost more matches than I won. But my character, I didn't need to win. I didn't need a title to make my character or something like that. That you make that title, you make that character and stuff like that.
Well, that's right too. I won more matches than I lost, and I shouldn't have because I was mainly a heel. But the way you win, the manner you win, you got to bring it. You got to have something to bring back. That's what Jim Cornette always says. There's got to be a reason to have a rematch, and that's how you build business. If the babyface goes out there and beats the heel 1, 2, 3, then why would anybody ever want to watch the match again? And also, if the heel,
you gotta sell tickets.
Yeah, and if the baby would, or if the heel would beat the baby, you kill the guy. It's easier to be hated in this day and age than loved. So you have to really protect your baby faces. They can lose, but they have to lose in such a way that people still want to support them. You don't want everybody going, well, that guy was a pussy. You know, and you go in the 7 deadly steps of a wrestling match. Basically, if you use that formula all the time, it makes your baby face look terrible, look like a big pansy. And then your heel takes one move, and all of a sudden, he's laying on the ground selling. And you're like, everybody in the audience is like, well, both these guys are candy asses. So you have to really think about what you're doing. If you watch older wrestling, like from the 80s, before the bad guys got any heat, the really good heel teams would shine the babies up for 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes before the bad guys even had a whiff of offense. And nowadays it's like, I'm going to take the heat, and the heel grabs the guy and starts beating the crap out of him because he's a kid or whatever. And it's like, that's not how you do this sport. But anyway, I felt like I always had some wisdom with that, and I could kind of see through the people being a mark, because I think, like you say, it's like, it's not, I don't need to win a belt. In fact, anybody who's really any good in wrestling on my level,
you never really needed it.
When the promoter goes, I want to put the belt on, you're like, oh no, because the problem is you got to carry it to the ring, and then your match has to be something that you maybe don't want it to be. You have to, a title match has to be has to be certain things that happen in a title match. When you have freedom just to do a regular match, it could be anything. If you're dependent upon selling tickets in that spot, which I don't know how many places actually do that, but theoretically, historically, the guy with a belt is supposed to be the one drawing money, or whatever the angle is supposed to be drawing money. But, you know, so you have to wrestle longer maybe than what you want to, or you can do less comedy, or you have to hurt you.
You could still do that, though. You could still do a comedy with the title, though.
You
in
can,
a way, and it still be a good storytelling.
You can. You just can't go off the rails. It still has to.
Right.
You're more limited with the belt, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You can do
not that Orange Cassidy stuff.
Yeah. Well, going back to Jim Cornette, I don't really watch a lot of wrestling these days, and I don't mind a gimmick, but to me, that never made sense to me. Who's the guy that used to throw people with his penis? I never got that either.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know if he still wrestles. It's Joey Ryan.
Yeah, he got in trouble. And I'm a comedy guy. I mean, but I think comedy has to be, I think violence has to come first. If you're a comedy wrestler first, you know, Cornette says, I don't know, I'm quoting Cornette today for some reason, but he says, funny don't draw money. Like Ric Flair to me was a comedy wrestler, because the way he sold, the way he begged, the way he fell down on his face, the way he'd flip over the turnbuckle, the way that he was so braggadocious on promos, the way that he wore, you know, $10,000 suits and Rolexes and mink coats. And then when he would wrestle, he'd look like a pansy. Well, to me, that was great comedy. And that's the thing. That was lightning in a bottle. But you can do a character like Eugene, or the Spirit Squad.
I was going to say, Eugene was one of the ones that literally I captivated on, just because of the characteristics that he had. And the craziest thing, I actually met him, I think it was at a seminar or something like that. Well, and you could just tell he's so different from what he was on that camera.
Sure.
And it's just like, he even talked about it. It's like, he literally had to put himself in that mindset. And sometimes when you play a character like that, it can also be troublesome in the long run, because you have to basically portray that all the time around the crowds and stuff to make that believable. And he said it, man. Yeah. Luckily, I had a mask, so nobody could really tell who the heck I was outside of the ring or something like that. But yeah, and he would just tell me like how, like, mentally, it just kind of like threw him off so many times, because then he was like, man, I just wish I was a heel, because it's like I got tired of people acting like I'm slow, and like I'm like damn near stupid and stuff like that.
That is a trick, you know. I mean, like I feel like comedy wrestlers, because I guess some people would consider me one. I'm a white pimp, basically, is what I am. So I mean, I
The
get
White
my
Godfather.
yeah, you know. I mean, I'm a jive talking white guy that gets. I'm smaller than most. I'm 5'10", 215 pounds. And well, nowadays I'm pretty big compared to, but back in the day I was pretty small compared to most guys. But so I would, you know, cowardly heel, cheat like hell, braggadocious. You know, it's all about trumping up the baby face. That's what my job was. And and to be a comedy wrestler, people look down on you. And actually, doing good comedy is extremely hard in wrestling. Doing comedy is hard. Period. You know, people give awards to actors. Oh my God, he played a dying priest with children that were going to be left. Well, that's not hard. You just look solid and go, I'm sorry, honey. Oh my God, what a performance. Being funny is so much harder than that stuff sometimes.
Especially the fan base now. Like,
yeah.
To make it, for them to get a reaction out of you, it can be tough. Because, I mean, look at how they watch wrestling all the time. They sit here and question, oh, why did Cody go over? Why did it do stuff like this? And I'm just like, it's a match. Enjoy it for what it is.
Let them tell the story, you know?
Exactly. Oh, my gosh, man.
That's the thing that I can't. It's like there's so much reaction to everything now. And everybody's got this veil of anonymity, which means they can say all the shit they want to say. And I'm not a huge fan of what wrestling has become in the last 20 years, but I still appreciate the fact that those guys are putting their lives on the line. And I'm not going to sit there and besmirch it a lot. I could say, it's not my flavor. I think AEW is doing some things that are pretty good and some things are not, but that's kind of what wrestling's always been, is a hodgepodge of three-ring circus.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, sometimes you got guys that are awesome and sometimes, you know, I don't think in history you've ever enjoyed an entire roster of guys. There's always been duds, but that's, you know, having a dud makes the guy, when your guy comes out, makes you more excited. So it kind of works in that way too. But going back to comedy wrestlers there was a guy in World of Sport. I love World of Sport, by the way, but there was a guy in World of Sport who, as he continually wrestled, he acted more and more drunk. It was a serious wrestler, but there was that comedy element to it. And like, I thought Eugene and Santina, when they were put in decent positions and allowed to let themselves roll, they did a good job in their roles. One of the best comedy matches I ever saw was Eugene versus one of the Spirit Squad members, and the Spirit Squad member came out with like a jump rope or something, or some sort of like weight bands or resistance bands, and they, you know, and he was trying to show him how to do it to work out. It's just a stupid idea, but they did it so well, and they incorporated that gimmick into the match at the end. In comedy, a very important thing is called a callback. A callback is when you say something like, I'm going to kick your mom in the pussy. And then like 10 minutes later, you use that phrase again, or maybe something a little bit less or more genteel, maybe something not that gross. But the callback, when you mention it again, human beings react to that. Oh, you said that 5 minutes ago, and for some reason we think it's funny. In wrestling, if you're a comedy wrestler, that's important too. So in that match, they introduced this stupid weightlifting gimmick, which were like resistance bands. And it, I still giggle at it to this day, but what the Spirit Squad guy was hanging on to it, and Eugene was pulling, and they finally let go. And it went into the finish where he rolled him up 1, 2, 3, and it was fantastic. The guy,
they got the pop of the night too for that match.
Yes, the heel introduced his own demise, which is a fantastic lesson for you young comedic heels to learn. One time, my tag team partner is 7 feet tall. It's the guy I wrestled in the Hike. He's in this movie, WJHC. He's my co-director and co-writer, a great friend. We had a match. We were booked in a show where there were 12 matches. And it was one of these shows we had. Yes. this Booker is a nice guy. He does not. He does
You don't
not
have the idea of it.
He doesn't know how to say no to people that want to get on his show. And it was one of these anniversary shows, but
you must have lost some money in that then. Murder.
It's absolute murder. And then we had a couple guys who were super indie guys who do these 45-minute. They'll be, these guys they'll go on third and they feel like they have to steal the show, and they got to do 45 fucking false finishes. And so it's like, what am I supposed to, what's match four supposed to do to beat this guy? So we were match 9 of 12. Can you imagine being match 9 of 12? Me and Luke with no buildup. So what we did is we were on TV.
It was just y'all two? It was just a tag match, or was it a singles?
No, this was me versus him. This was before we were a tag team. And we were on TV doing a thing where he had a concussion. So he came out to the ring, and this was my idea. And he couldn't remember how to do his finish. And he had a book, How to Do the Full Nelson Slam. And it was a big book that you could read. And it was big, giant. And he kept looking at it. And we kept saying, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I'm having a hard time remembering how to do my finish. He said that before the match. And we did this as a gift for the fans, because if we went out there and had a physical match, they would not give a shit. They would have lost it. Yeah,
they would have lost control of it. Yeah.
9 matches. Nobody would have given a damn. So this had no buildup. So this whole match, every time he got me in a compromising position, he would try to put me in a full Nelson. He'd lose it. He'd go back over and start looking through the how-to guide. That would give me the time to go get the heat back, wear him out. He'd reverse it, try to get me in the thing. Oh, shit. He'd ask the referee. Then we started trying to show him. He'd look at the book, and eventually he put me in the full Nelson Slam, lifted me up. He's a real big guy. Boom. And then the whole crowd exploded. And he ran out into the audience, high-fiving and celebrating with everybody. And he got counted out, and I won. And it was a way, the crowd was chanting, "You can't wrestle, you suck." And the crowd was alive at that point. And the promoter said we almost got match of the year because we saved that part of the show but that was a gift.
Wow.
Because we realized we need to give these guys a comedy because they're
perfect timing.
Yeah. Cause match.
12 matches.
And when you do
I've
that,
never done that. Not been on a show with 12 matches. That's insane. How long did that show go?
Oh God, 4 hours. He had another one the other year. Let me tell you this. There was a battle royal. No, I'm sorry.
Hopefully you threw a battle royal in there if you had that many matches. Good
there was another show he did where he had every tag team he ever had in a gauntlet match. That match lasted an hour and 40 minutes. It was like a benefit show for some guy that died. I can't remember, or maybe I don't, but it was like we went out as match. We were like team 6. We beat 2 teams and lost to team 9. And we were trying to go fast. You ruin the sport at that rate too. Mm-hmm. You have all these teams losing in 3 minutes. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, the guy, bless his heart, he's a good guy. But yeah, those were he had some
matches.
He had some marathon matches down there.
How's the pace going on with that show? Because like before y'all's comedy match, was it everybody trying to steal the show the whole time?
Oh yeah, that's how.
So you're telling me like 30 to 40 minutes a match basically.
Well, some were 10 and some were 5, and some guys weren't very like he had green guys that would go out there and only wrestle for about 5 or 6 minutes. But who needs to see when you have 12 shows? That's the other thing too with wrestling is I would always try to see what the card needed. I was never delusional to think I was ever going to be in the WWE or with TNA or anything. So I felt like my main event or my time to shine were these independent shows. So
less is more.
If you're the first match, children, don't go to the floor. Don't bump the ref. Don't have a bunch of false finishes. Don't use a weapon. Show the audience what wrestling is. I'm I'm not a huge fan of roll-ups and stuff, but a quick pin is great in the first match because it tells everybody the rest of the night that anytime the referee goes down to count, the match could end. And then that explodes in the main event because at that point, anytime the referee's going down 1, 2, 3, your whole night could end. So the first match is very important because you're showing these people what wrestling is. All the bullshit with false finishes, dusty finishes, referee interference, bumping the fucking ref, going to the floor, multiple false finishes, using weapons. Save that for other
title
people.
matches. And title matches or main events. That's the only thing I could save those for.
Yeah, well, okay, like a first one should be a baby is always a good first one, or something like that. And then you could do like, you know, if you're gonna have a street fight, have a street fight. If you're gonna have a ref bump, do it at the end of the night. Because the worst thing in the world is bump a ref and then he's got to get right back up and do the next match.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like
I'm glad you figured this. You're talking about that, man. That junk drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I've been on a couple of shows. I haven't been on a show that had 12 matches. That is still oh my God. WrestleMania at least is 2 nights or something. If they're gonna book something like that, oh my gosh.
Yes.
One whole night, 12 matches.
You know what you do when you do 12 matches, don't you? You run who needs to see wrestling again for a year? You're wrestled out. You're like, well, you want to go to wrestling this month?
You probably lost more money than that you earned in that.
You did.
That one, period.
Yep.
You better had a heck of a concession stand.
Yeah. Because people are exhausted. Do you want to go see wrestling next month? Man, I thought it just feels like it just ended. We'll just take a couple months off.
See, that's the thing about wrestling. We're in this era that wrestling is, everybody thinks they got to do everything in the kitchen sink and do one match. And I was like that at first when I first started, but I learned the saying bump card. I laughed about it because I was only 23 when I got into this business.
Thank you.
But when I hit 26, 20, almost 27, that's where you're just like, all right, this is actually real. Like, I'm starting to feel this a lot more. I'm starting to realize this is not, every single day getting up, jumping. Like, I'm getting out of bed, barely able to move my neck sometimes because it's just in so much pain. I mean, I ain't trying to have no sissy call on this, but it's the reality because you sit there and do these matches. You need to make sure the bump card is relevant. And like, I learned a long time because shout out to my boy Less Fortunate. The places that you put yourself into the match dictates what the momentum is in the show. So when we were the first match, we would actually give them a show or something like that. But I hated the movie. I hated matches that had false finishes. If they're gonna do a false finish, I told the person flat out, if we slip up and you hit your finisher on me, or if I hit my finisher on you, that's it. We're not kicking out of that because we're not killing that spot. Because what I did for my finisher, I hit you with the shotgun drop kick, and I hit you with the code breaker. If I hit you with that code breaker, you better be pinned to 1 to 3 because I'm literally timing it every time in my match. Like, I'm sitting there trying to aim for it every single time, just showing, hey, I'm this close. All I gotta do is hit it, man. All I gotta do is hit it. And the fans just start getting more excited when they see my legs come up to that person's chest. They're like, and then it throws them back off. And I mean, that's how we put shine to the baby face. Like, you're putting both guys over when you're teasing that finisher through the match. And my God, the super kick era has got to end. It was cool. When I first started wrestling, I finally figured out how the super kick really is, where you smack the thigh and stuff. And I was like, so I would go around just sitting there and just randomly kicking all the time because I was thinking about maybe doing it. And then I was like, and then you just watch every show. Super kick, match 2. Tease the super kick, match 3. Tag team super kicks. Oh, my match. Not going to be a super kick.
My 3 signature moves. Just to show you, anybody watching this that's young that wants to get into pro wrestling. First off, don't. It is a bastard of a lover. It's a terrible mistress. You do have a lot of fun.
It's a toxic.
Yeah, it's toxic. At your mother's funeral, at your wife's funeral, There will be maybe one. If you're lucky, you'll have one wrestler there. Most of them will, as soon as you're injured, as soon as you're not booked in a popular place, people treat you like you've got. They treat you like you've got leprosy. The friendships are strange. They come and go, and you don't talk to people for 7 years, and all of a sudden they're back. So I mean, it's a strange environment. When things are going great, it's the funnest thing alive when you're in wrestling and it's going good. When it's bad, it's the shits. And but if you are going to be a wrestler, I always this is my mentality, and this is why I always got booked. I could talk good. That was one of the things, but one of the other things is I had a unique perspective on what a character should be, and not everybody on the roster needs to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. You got to have guys. Everybody needs to be a threat to the title, but not everybody needs to be Billy Badass. You need to have different flavors, or you're all going to run together and look like a bunch of jabrones. Like you said, less is more. If you actually work together, and there's a couple of really awesome badass dudes on the roster that look that and can pull that off, and you realize you got a beer gut and a farmer's tan, maybe you need to go after a different gimmick. You could still be a great worker.
Say that again.
Yeah, you don't need to be Billy Badass. You could come up. You could be something else. But my three signature moves in the era of the Canadian Destroyer and the Super Kick. My finish is the funky figure 4 leg lock, because that is the most 2020 move. I do the Johnny Saint special where I roll up into a ball because I'm double jointed in my legs, and I can do that. Most guys can't. And then I do, if I have a finish that is like a power finish, I do fucking Andre the Giant's single underhook suplex. So I do all these old ancient moves nobody sees, but that makes it unique because nobody does these fucking moves anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about psychology. Heels are supposed to have submission holds. Why? Because it gives the baby face a chance to get the crowd behind it.
It's a never give up mentality.
That's right. You're showing that the baby face doesn't. If every heel has a fucking awesome finisher, then why aren't you a baby face? There's something about making somebody submit that's heelish too. So when you do occasionally get somebody to tap out, you look like an asshole. That's changed a little bit with MMA, I think. But back now, everybody's tapping out left and right. But used to, tapping out was special. It meant something. It was a gift. But the figure 4 is great too for young heels because it's easily reversed. And the move that you put the guy into, you can roll over and it's your demise. Well, man, the fans love that stuff. One of the best things, like when I do spot shows, one of the easiest promos ever is I come out and I say whatever, like, you guys are scoundrels or whatever you say as a heel, but you just look at the baby face and you say, I'm going to make you tap out to the figure 4 leg lock. I'm going to rip your damn knee off. I'm going to throw it in the front row, and these kids are going to be crying because your patella is going to land in their snow cones. And I'm gonna dangle your tendons from my legs from my teeth. You never walk again. And so the crowd goes, oh, you're an a-hole. Well, what's the best finish for that match? The
baby face beating him.
Beating me by which move?
By the submission.
By the figure 4 leg lock. If the baby face puts me in my own hold and I scream bloody murder, oh, my leg, oh, God, and I tap out to my own hold, oh, my God, the place every time explodes.
It'll erupt, yeah.
Explode. And then you can take, and this is the thing, it's not about winning and losing. The baby face gets the shine. All the people are looking at him. But guess who's looking at the guy who can't walk back to the locker room? I take 2 steps, I fall down. I take another step, I fall down. I sit there. The referees have to help pick me up. And the whole time I'm getting over, even though I put that guy over,
yep,
they're going to remember me. The other guy is just Whitey McGee or whatever.
It'll be like a trademark name, basically. So that would basically be your trademark. So like when you come back, they'll be like, oh, Gimpy or something like that. They'll have a little slang for you. And honestly, that can make you a hell of a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see with Matt Cardona every other week. Like literally, what jab he's got thrown at him, he's literally making a T-shirt of it every single week.
Well, that's smart too. That's always good marketing.
Smart booking, man. Smart booking.
And you make
Gosh,
money
man.
too. Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
And that's the fun thing about wrestling was when it works. And I remember that I did that at this really big 4th of July show. And this guy says, "I've never been a babyface." And I said,
"Really?"
I was like, I'll get you over. He goes, "Nobody will ever cheer me." And I came out into that whole shtick. Dude, it sounded like Hulk Hogan just won the world title after he made me tap out to the figure 4. The only problem is you got to make sure everybody knows how to do the figure 4. There's a lot of jabrones that don't.
Oh my gosh, man! So I'm glad you brought that up. So I was watching this match because we were getting ready for this build-up match we had for the alternative title. It was basically a title that was sanctioned with not regular match rules. So it was basically a specialty match. It no matter if it's one-on-one, tag team, winner takes all type turmoil, all that BS. So I wanted to do like how you've always said, a heel should always have a submission. I told him, I said, I want you to put me in a sharpshooter. And he was like, okay. I was like, have you done it? Yeah, I done it. Didn't find out you only fucking done it on video games. So when we go over it, and he was like, I was like, do you want to go over it? You want to work on it? No, we're good. So we go 10 minutes in the match. Needless to say, he goes to put me into the move. I told him, I said, I want you to torture it. Basically, literally sell it to the crowd. Like you literally are giving everything you got for this sharpshooter. And he was like, I'm going to break his damn knee. I'm going to break his damn knee. First of all, he fucking kicked me in my nuts. Secondly, when he went to turn, he didn't put his leg in that one spot to actually make it to where it kind of feels like a little bit, but instead it's hurting every single spot of my body. So my body is just like, it felt paralyzed, like I'd had no control. I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, you got to fucking let go. I'm sitting there trying to pull the referee. I'm like, dude, let him let the fuck go. Like he has got this in so damn tight. And literally, and he's just holding this shit. And I mean, we were holding it for a good solid. I counted it when I watched the film. I think we almost went to 20 seconds. That shit was so painful. And he was like, that was awesome, man. You sold that like a champ. I said, shut the fuck up.
I almost tapped out and ruined the gimmick.
Oh my gosh, my knee's shaking a little bit now just thinking about that damn thing, because like the way he had it in, his kneecap was so far into my thigh, it was like basically razor sharp, just pressing so much pressure onto my knee. I'm like, dude, you need to watch wrestling before you even think about doing any type of submission moves. He's like, well, I thought about doing the crossface. I said, well, you're gonna watch something before you even think of doing that again. But yeah, like right after that, the finish was me roll him over to pin him 1, 2, 3, and the crowd just erupted because literally it's not done normal. Like it's not something that you literally do. I mean, they shot the recent WWE match where Aaliyah rolled up Natalia because they're like, oh, that sucked. There was no match. She blah blah blah. She can't wrestle and all that. I'm like, she kind of just worked all y'all. So guess what? She did her job. Right. Natty just made her look like $1 million. I mean, if we think about some of the most recent pops, even though Daniel Bryan is still upset to this day about it, was the night that Sheamus kicked him in, like, what was it, 10 seconds? When Sheamus just kicked him 10 seconds after he kissed AJ. 1, 2, 3, a World Heavyweight Championship match just decided on a easy, quick pinfall, but the crowd erupted because it was shocking. Like you wouldn't expected it. It's the unexpected. And that's one bad thing wrestling has got so far right now. There's nothing unexpected anymore.
Well, it's like Star Wars. It's like the new trilogy that just came out. You had people hate
they do too much.
People hate on everything. So there's no way the new Star Wars is ever going to be as good as the original trilogy. There's just too much nostalgia. What it was, what they did, they transformed what sci-fi movies were. People just, there's no way anybody could have ever made it any good. All I wanted was the stuff to be better than those terrible prequels. and you still have people hating on the new trilogy for one reason or another. And it's like, and it's because the fanboys, it didn't go the way they wanted it to. And they're bitching about, well, that doesn't make any sense, and this crap don't everything. And it's just like, let them tell the story, man.
That's the same thing about Marvel fans too. With Endgame, like legit Marvel fans, they're like, well, that's not how that goes, or whatever. And people that literally just watched that movie, probably, I would still say that's probably one of the best storytelling movies I've seen in a long time, because you just were in an emotional roller coaster through the whole movie. And then, of course, I don't want to spoil anything, but the new Spider-Man, you definitely got that kind of same feel with it.
22 movies in the MCU done in 10 years.
That was a WrestleMania.
I can't tell you how awesome, because a lot of if you remember the Phantom, and remember Ghost Rider 2, and remember, there's a lot of shitty superhero movies. They made 22 with maybe 2 or 3 that weren't very good, but most of them were very good movies. And they told a story. Wrestlers could take a hint from the MCU, and Endgame was just unbelievable. I mean, how most of the time when you get into, if you watch a movie, if you watch a series of shows, normally the last thing is kind of this derivative fight. You watch a movie that's real interesting, and like the last 30 minutes of the movie, they're running through a building, and it's all, I've seen this a million times, and the bad guy dies the same way at the end of the skyscraper or whatever. He gets it. I mean, Endgame was amazing. And as a movie maker, I worry about just basically superhero movies are going to be the only thing that really draw money anymore. But the MCU was great, and the MCU's told some good stories. And for people that hate on the MCU, look at DC. DC still struggles to make stuff that really hits good. I mean, that new Wonder Woman was absolute garbage. I could watch that woman jump around. I could watch Gil Gadot jump around for 2 hours with no dialogue and be happy. That movie was still terrible. And what they did with Ben Affleck's Batman was weird, and it just was a weird.
And the craziest thing is, I thought Ben Affleck played the part very well for Batman.
He deserves his own Batman movie. He deserves at least.
That's what I flat out said numerous times. Like, he was Batman. He was good. He was what we looked at as Bruce Wayne. We looked at him as that guy. I mean, that guy portrayed him so well, and that's like Henry Cavill. I think he is literally Superman. There's nobody else that really could replace him and stuff. And it's just like they had their chance at the Justice League movie. All they had to do was just tell the story. You rushed everything. We didn't know anything about the Aquaman or anything like that. We got a little bit out of his own Batman and Superman, but nothing to where it was just like, okay, that's cool. Like Marvel introduced Captain Marvel, the actual movie, right after Infinity War. Because Infinity War, you saw Nick Fury with the little beeper thing, and he's trying to get a connection with Captain Marvel. Guess what? What did that do? It built up to, that's a new character. Wait till we find out about this new character. Then you got the Captain Marvel film. And I think Captain Marvel got teased in some of the alternate endings. I think it was on Ant-Man, which I think Ant-Man coming out literally right after Infinity War was probably the best thing going on, because you knew even if that movie was going to suck, box office was going to hit outrageous because how Infinity War was. Infinity War is literally that climatic thing that MCU has done in a long freaking time.
Well, the bad guys won. It was The Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly.
So you needed a comedy after Infinity War, and that it's like a wrestling show. You have the ladies match, and then you have the giant take on 3 guys, and then you have tag match, a hardcore match, the comedy, and then you have the main event or whatever. It's an ebb and flow. And it keeps people interested. And that's what the MCU did so well. Is not the movies were all different. Some were sci-fi, some were that trope of Guardians of the Galaxy were like the lovable makeshift family.
Misfits.
Yeah, and they all love each other because nobody else likes them. And then you had then you had the cloak and dagger stuff with Captain America, and then you had the charismatic superhero with Tony Stark. Then you had the heist movie with Ant-Man, and it's like each movie was a different flavor. Doctor Strange was surreal, a surreal adventure, and then this show Hawkeye was a very small neighborhood type, which I feel like they desperately need. I kind of feel like the Marvel universe may be in trouble because
they've done too well.
And you're starting to. The bad thing, you're trading out really good characters, Iron Man and Captain America, which should happen. But those are both. Everybody loves Captain America.
That's the Rocket Stone Cold right there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so they're going off into the sunset, and now you're starting to get some weird. Then we're starting to get these stories are getting bigger and more fantastic, and I'm like, you're going to start losing people. I think it's going to be weirder characters. The heroes are going to be like Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel.
Have you seen Spider-Man yet?
I have not. I don't know why I haven't. I've been I want to.
Okay. The thing is that I would say that I would hope MCU would be careful of is this time travel stuff that they've
exactly
done so far, because the timing on these characters coming in and out, that's great. All right, but this is the problem that DC had. We've had the fans wanting so much, so they tried to give it to them, but it didn't have a story to it and stuff like that. I feel like MCU is going to probably be in that same boat a little bit because they're like, oh, that was so good. We need to see his single film or whoever such and such's film. And I'm like, no, you don't need to do that, because that's the reason why that movie was so good, because that person you grew up watching, because there is 9 different visuals of a certain superhero, if we want to be real, for that person to come back and you basically grew up watching that one should be your climatic thing. That should have been like, oh, that's that person. That's the best farewell you can do for that character. Not, oh, they need another film or something like that, because that's my biggest worry about MCU, because I remember when Endgame happened, I'm just like, where can they go from here now? Like,
that's a good point.
What can they do?
They've done pretty well, because I think WandaVision was very different.
That Loki show was amazing.
Loki was great. I thought Captain and Winter Soldier was amazing, and I thought Hawkeye was really good.
That didn't look like a show. It looked like a straight movie.
Which one, Captain and the Falcon?
Yeah.
Well, that was my favorite. Living in the South, I'm milk chocolate to begin with. I just really related to that character and that story. They go back to Baltimore, which is where I'm from, and I like everything about it. And it really was a good story about, and you probably know this too, about, 2 friends that were friends, mutual friends of a friend. That's what that story was. How did these 2 guys who had one mutual friend become a friend of each other? And that was a nice fucking story. So that one was great. And it's good. I'm just worried. The Eternals was definitely a turd.
It was a buzz.
We'll forgive them on that. I just think it's going too big. That's why I liked Hawkeye being a neighborhood. Almost felt like the Defenders. Like, it almost felt like Daredevil and Power Man and Iron Fist were about to pop out, and Jessica Jones. And that's what it needs to be again. And that's when I was a kid. That's what I was, inner city. That's the kind of comics I liked. I didn't like the space, the freaking giant coming to squish the earth like a grape. I liked the hijinks and the heists in the neighborhoods and stuff, and taking.
You know what this example is related to?
What?
WWE.
Oh yeah, how so?
Because WWE is that entertainment aspect. Like Vince has said it numerous times. WWE is not pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans don't like it like that. So when they watch these matches and stuff, they're like, oh man, he acts too goofy and stuff. It's entertainment. Like, if you think about it, WWE's main fan base is kids. When you watch AEW, you're seeing them cussing and doing all this, and I'm just like, you're on national television doing all that, man. Like, what role model character are you pulling out for kids and stuff like this? You don't see that happen in WWE often. Like, when we sit here and watch Roman Reigns and stuff like that, you want to hate him. You really want to hate this guy. Becky Lynch. as much as she's trying her hardest to be a heel right now, the crowd just absolutely fucking loves that girl. She is the new Stone Cold, basically. Like
Yeah.
that, she's in that platform for it. So it's just like, as much as they try to have her get hated, and it's just like, nah, we love you too much. And then obviously you got some of the communities that when stuff like that, when it was Bianca Belair and Liv Morgan and all them, and and I will say Becky has done so well as a heel to present the baby face, and then when she does the cheating rollover and stuff like that, you got a reaction because guess what? She had to cheat to win. Oh, you had to pull this out. You call yourself the GOAT and stuff like that. That's a way to sell tickets because you want to watch somebody whoop Becky Lynch. And it's the easiest storytelling. And when I watch AEW matches, man, I don't shoot on it numerous times just because I had a past to where I could have actually possibly been going to that promotion or something like that. But you're killing wrestling, in my opinion, because a great example. People hate me when I say this. I literally when we watched that pay-per-view, what was it, Double or Nothing, whatever, when the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks in that steel cage match, that was one of the worst fucking matches I've ever seen in my life. Because none of it made fucking sense. Because you did super kicks, you jumped off the cage, y'all did all that for 15 fucking minutes. Y'all went 30 minutes long and y'all acted like nothing. Like y'all didn't tell the story, and then the finish was just really fucking lackluster because you sat there and did all these moves in a 30-minute match. Like, if I was a fan base, the crowd, I would have looked at it and said, so a super kick is nothing now. Of a cross body off the top of the cage, you fell on your own teammate. And then you roll over like it's no problem. Like, these are the things that drove me nuts about this match. And I wish I had somebody that wrestled and stuff on there to talk with this with me, because they would have backed me up at the same thing. Like, man, none of that shit made sense at all. And then we're hearing match of the year and stuff like that. I'm like, no, that's probably one of the worst matches of the year.
It destroys what wrestling is. And again, I'm not going to say who I'm quoting here, but used to, they thought we were killing each other and we weren't doing anything. And now we're killing each other and they think it's fake.
Exactly.
Doing those spots in that match that you're talking about, good God, that's going to take years off your life.
I've had neck problems because of doing crossbodies, and that's just jumping off of the top rope, not jumping off of no damn cage.
And they've pussified the crossbody into nothing. A crossbody is just like a transition move. It's not even it used to be a finish. And and I know things change. I know we're going to sound like old men talking about this stuff, and things change, and you got to update stuff. But there's different ways to do it than just go out there and destroy your body and destroy the sport of wrestling and destroy the illusion of what it. Because how are you going to follow that match if the finish in mine and yours match is a DDT? People are going to be like, what? Or a super kick? And then we just follow a match.
30 super kicks.
Yeah. There's like 15 super kicks and nobody takes a pinfall. You know, and ours, that's the called finish. It makes no sense. It dumps all over it.
I'm happy for AEW, and I'm glad it's another wrestling thing. And there's so much wrestling content. And one thing I'll say about wrestling now, everyone's more athletic than what they were back in the day. Yeah. I will say that fully 100%. That's any sport athlete, honestly, basketball, football, or anything. They're way more athletic than the older genre and stuff like that because we were built on something different. Football, man, was the gritty. You didn't have to be muscular. You were just ready to knock someone's head off. And, I mean, quarterbacks look like one of those dads that you would just rock New Balances going to fields. It wasn't like you were really one of those muscular guys. You just were a really good thrower. And it's just like, we're in a different era, but golly, man, just don't kill something that we've all loved for so long.
Well, I mean,
and we put our time and effort in.
I want everybody to be athletic, and everybody needs to be, but everybody was always tough. They weren't necessarily bouncing around.
You didn't want to be caught in a bar with somebody.
Yeah, they can endure the pain. But the problem, I think, and maybe it's not a problem, but it is to me, is that gym rat used to be a gimmick. Now, if everybody's a gym rat, which is good in a way. If everybody's doing it healthy, if you do steroids, you become more injury prone, but
Right.
you're going to be able to last longer if you're in better shape, and maybe stave off injury. But again, the other thing is too, is when you become muscle bound, you become more injury prone because you're less flexible. And so all these guys
I
look like
learned that the hard way.
all these guys look like $1 million, rip shit all the time because because everything's so wound so tightly because they're so jacked.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a fine line between all that. And, but they don't, a human brain is a human brain. And if you're doing, like you look at, what's the kid's name that paints his face half?
Darby Allin?
Darby Allin, the way he does that fucking palanche where he's just a shoulder butt. I'm like, one day that kid's not going to get up from that fucking, it's a great looking dive. Looks like it kills you. And it's good psychology because he's so small, he has to turn himself into a battering ram to knock somebody over. But still, a human brain, a human neck, a human spine, no matter how big and bad you are, is fragile. And one day he's going to be getting up from the
He's
pile.
not a big dude either. Like,
No, well, that's why he has to turn himself into a bullet to do that spot. But it scares me for him.
That spot where he jumps through the turnbuckle.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
and he
about.
Shoots out.
Yeah, he looks like a bullet, and he hits the guy hard.
It looks nice.
It
and
does.
the funny thing, it's not even that real painful. Like I've been on a show with him.
Where he's 140 pounds.
It was in Georgia. It was like in Georgia. Like at that time he was homeless, and he was literally he was very like not social with anybody in shows and stuff like that. So he basically lived in a car for a moment. But it was just like, I think he was like 140 pounds. I know since he's went to AEW, he's actually put on some weight now. I think he's probably like 150, 160 at the most.
I hope he's getting a paycheck too. I hope he's
getting a good payday now because he's one of the guys that are making the money on there. Yeah. I mean, hell, he got a CM Punk match for CM Punk's very first one back, and I mean that just says a lot right there because that tells you like how much respect somebody had for Darby because Darby was always a good person. It was just I don't know how to put it without getting in trouble.
Well, going back to Punk,
stubborn ass. He was a stubborn little shit.
Well,
I guess that's the best way to put it.
Going back, switching gears a little bit so you don't get in trouble. I mean, the CM Punk, okay, he's very over. Not so over that he's really moving the needle on the attendance or the viewership of AEW, but he's over. But my old school, this is how old school I am. If you go into shoot fighting and you get your ass kicked, to me, you killed yourself in wrestling. Because why do we want to watch you wrestle? We know you're a pussy now. You can't fight. And I know the guys in Chicago that knows who he is. And they said the guy was a jabron when he was a kid because they grew up with him. And in fact, the guy that I'm talking about in my movies, Luke, he trained CM Punk's brother. I can't remember his name, something Brooks. But it's weird to me. It's like this guy's getting a second reprieve after getting in a shoot fighting. Like, Lesnar did well. Lashley did pretty well. Bobby Lashley, I'm sorry. He did pretty well.
You want to be stuck in a bar with them too.
Right. But Punk, there's a rumor that came out that Punk fought 20 guys and lost 19 fights in practice. I mean, and that's when you're like, okay, maybe
I believe it.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't need to be. And, not everybody needs to be a shooter, but you don't expose the business or yourself that way. But I find it interesting that they've welcomed him back with open arms because he looks like, I mean, he can't be much more than 180 pounds, right? I mean, he's kind of a small guy himself. So
that was my thing about Punk. Like, I'm not the biggest person, but dude, when I took my shirt off, like, I looked athletic and stuff.
Right.
Punk never looked athletic to me.
No.
And I think that's one thing that fans loved about him because he was relatable. Right. And I was just like, bro, he looks, and they sitting there saying, oh, he's vegetarian and shit like that. I'm like, he looks pregnant in ways. Like, he has a weird belly fat to him. And it was just like, people were like, oh, you just mad, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, like, he's great on a microphone, and he was good in the ring. It's just, his shit don't make sense. when they're talking about, oh, he's stiff and he's stiff. I'm like, you got your ass whooped in UFC fights.
Right.
And you're going to come over and present that you can go beat up a big guy like Powerhouse Hobbs.
Right.
That literally you would not want to be left in the alley with.
Yeah. I like the David versus Goliath stuff.
I love those, but it's got to make sense.
It's got to make sense. It's got to make sense. And I think they did a good. I heard Jim Cornette say, God, I keep quoting him today. What the hell? I watch
a lot I listen to a lot of his podcasts. He has an out there mindset, but he's right about the wrestling perspectives and ways.
Most of the time he is, but it's like
I was gonna try to make it where it was minimal on it. Most of the time, for sure.
He has
his moments.
Punk had a match with Powerhouse where he did the 5 or 6 power bombs or whatever, and
that was Wardlow.
Yeah, Wardlow. Thank you. And then the guy was like, "Don't pin him yet" or whatever, and that was that. I thought that was pretty good psychology, even though a lot of people didn't like that. I thought because it looked like he beat him, and a guy like Wardlow would beat Punk in a real fight. So I thought that was pretty good. So
he put Punk over.
Yeah, it put Punk over. It put Wardlow over too. It made Wardlow look like he could beat this guy who's not been beat since he's been back. So that was a good way. You always want to have a match where people are over. Both people are over, and maybe at the end you have somebody put some guy over. But that's the problem with wrestling now is when the territories went away. You can't do honors and go somewhere else to be new. So it's like, okay, you had a big run against so-and-so and you lost. What are we going to do with you now? You can't ship off and go to Portland and be on Portland television. We're going to have to figure out what to do. And that's hard to do. That's hard booking. How do you reinvent somebody that lost a big angle? There's only so many girlfriends got in your head / I went crazy / I suffered a concussion angles.
The Jerry Springer storyline.
or I joined a cult or what, there's when you're bouncing back from a loss, I don't know. I'm a transvestite now or something. I don't know. You come up with some angle for these guys, but you run out of those pretty fast.
You know, it's the craziest story that a heel I'm shocked that has never done, other than Roman Reigns. Wear a mask coming out to the crowd. Yeah. You know how much heat you could get just from doing that?
Well, you were talking about you wear a mask. Masks are
not a full mask. I'm talking like just one of those masks for like the COVID protection type masks.
Oh, you mean a COVID mask?
Yeah. You know how much heat you could get from that?
Man, in the South you would. There was I used to kind of book a group in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we had a character named the Germaphobe. And each week he would have more. Like the first day he came out and he had a mask and a spray can. He just kind of came out and he'd spray the referee's ass crack, and and you get laughs. At the end of it, he had a mop. He was in a hazmat suit. I mean, you build it up. It was a short-term run. Like he was a heel and like the bad guy was the champion, and he was sitting there talking, and he'd say, "Hold on a second, champ." And he'd take the belt off and spray down the belt and give it back to him. The heel bad guy or the heel champ be something like, what the hell? But that I never thought about that before. But man, a COVID mask would be fucking fire right now because people would be that
could get so much heat, much damn heat,
especially in the South. Southern pro wrestling fans would not like. If you went up north with that, they'd be like, "What a socially responsible human being he is." But down south, they're like, "Oh, you're a brainwashed liberal." So I mean, it's so funny how you go. That's how me and Luke are. We're Yankees, and when we come down here, or when we wrestle down here, we're heels, and when we go up north, we're heels too, because we start talking about how great the South is or whatever. So we play both sides, and then we come back down here and we're like,
it's working the crowd, man. It's those little things that works the crowd. People just don't realize it.
Yeah,
like entertainment is what makes pro wrestling, in my opinion. Like all the main highlighted moments. I mean, we all praise the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era is completely entertaining.
The
Most of that
attitude,
shit wasn't there.
you know, the Attitude Era though. If you were watching the WWE,
The matches weren't that great.
there was a lot of shit. The WC. What was really weird is WCW had the best opening and the best mid card, and the fucking main event shit sucked. And for the WWE, all that kind of stuff sucked, but their main event stuff was incredible.
Yeah, because you had The Rock, Stone Cold, all those guys. You had a hell of a lineup.
Undertaker, and then you had Kurt Angle, and you had all these great characters. Kurt Angle was a great comedy character.
I was gonna say, yeah. He's one of the ones that actually done it right to make the main plateau.
And he was legit because he could wrestle, and you knew he was an Olympic champion.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to have, like, the comedy guy has to be a badass in his own right. But
Right.
There's still like Ric Flair. And that's how you can make the comedy work, because you're still afraid of him winning. And you still, if he did upset your hero, you'd be like, oh man, I can't believe he lost, but it makes sense. This guy wrestled and won a gold medal with a broken neck. What a great backstory too. But that
was the best build up to Eugene as well.
Yeah. And so you could Kurt Angle was one of the best comedy guys, even though he wasn't, I guess he was one of the best comedy guys of all time because he was a badass. But that era was awesome. You had the Luchadors with WCW and ECW, and then you had guys like Malenko, and then WCW had this weird broth of guys like Screaming Norman Smiley and Disco Inferno, and they were all like these weird wrestlers, but they were interesting to watch, even though they would never have made it on the WWE. And then you had, of course, Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels. I mean, you just go down the list of those guys they had there at the time that were unbelievable, that were tremendous guys that could make all the money. But you'll never be able to beat Rock and Stone Cold in that one WrestleMania. I don't think. That was amazing.
No,
that was a build.
You talking about 17?
That was an amazing build up to me
with the Limp Bizkit build up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is one of the best promo videos I still to this day.
And
all the time.
The lyrics were talking about questioning my leadership or something like that. That kind of, I don't know, like it was just really, it was great. It was great. Good stuff.
It was so relatable to those two because it was like they both were good guys, but they were in a mix with bad guys as well. Yeah. Like they were in betweeners, and literally they were gonna do Stop at Nothing, and literally that's the best timing when those two wrestled. If it was a pay-per-view match, you saw color with them because it was a pay-per-view match. It made sense. And the false finishes made sense as well. Yes. Those were the best timing ones that they done with those was because it was a pay-per-view match. Okay, then we'll do a false finish.
Yes.
Not on a Raw, not on a SmackDown, not on a Sunday Night Heat. Oh my gosh, they'd have done a false finish on that.
Not on the same card with two mid-carders. Yeah, you want to see because they were both babies. It was really like a reimagining of Warrior and Hogan, where you had these two guys that like
except one didn't get blown up in the first minute.
Well, they were both much better performers. One would argue that they might have been better characters, but the Stone Cold and The Rock were better performers. But they they superseded, they rose above all the murkiness of the heels. And it became they rose to the top. All the evil, nefarious doings of the heels they couldn't keep them down anymore. And those two rose to the top. And then it was pure wrestling. And that's an interesting thought, is that you take the good guy, bad guy element out of it, and the bad guys finally are defeated, which has taken years and years and years to do, and then the top two guys are two babies, and then you can go to another level. It seems like, on a lesser level, at that Blanca Belair WrestleMania match where she used her hair whip to pin that chick. Holy cow! What a effing match!
Something new.
Yeah, and
that's one thing I always wondered. Was she always had her hair thing like that? I was like, she has to use it as a weapon. Like,
I loved how
she gave me that Cowboy Bob Orton vibe. Like Cowboy Bob Orton when he had the cast on, He would use it to win matches. Like, in my opinion, I always saw Bianca Belair as a heel, and I thought it was way too soon for her to win the Rumble. I thought it was way too soon for her to win the title. But Sasha was that girl, was the main attraction, and for her to get her main event, she had to have somebody that could really move with her. And I think Bianca did a great job, but I still find it too early. And I've always sat here and said numerous times, and I'm pretty sure you could agree with me on this. Literally, people captivate off the chase to the title.
Yes, sir.
Not when you have the title.
Well, this gets into something. I love the match at WrestleMania. I don't watch a lot of wrestling, so I'm not affiliate. What's crazy about WrestleMania? I went up to the Tomaselli brothers. I don't know if you know who they are. They were the Juggalo Championship Wrestling. They were big 10 years ago, but Chicago guys. CM Punk's brothers in there. There's a bunch of who's of all like the B-list wrestlers from that area up there. And I'm watching WrestleMania and a bunch of wrestling. Most everybody's high as shit, eating edibles, going out of their mind, passing out and stuff. It was a pretty crazy party up there. And so we watched WrestleMania, and the first night, this is what's weird with wrestling. Save for an instance or two, the first night was really, really good. And the Bianca Belair match, when she hit that chick with the damn hair whip and that cracked across, and you're like, look at that welt that was that loud. I was like, man, she won't be able to land that anymore. What a great match. And then the next night, WrestleMania 2, you had that Bray Wyatt weird bullshit.
Oh, yeah. The false finish at that. Oh, my gosh.
With the woman, like her head's bleeding and shit. And I'm like, and the ring is red. I'm like, that is terrible. And then you had the two brothers. I can't remember. I guess they might have been from the Bootios or something. And they had like
New Day?
They had New Day. They had a drum match, and they didn't use the drums. And nobody once explained what the fuck a Egyptian drum match was, and it was like, what the fuck? We're having a drum match. No, nobody's using a drum. They're just laid around the ring, and that's just the stupid shit. And then you had Sami Zayn, who I normally liked, especially when he was the crazy kid from Chikara. Sami Zayn talking about conspiracy. What was the fucking conspiracy? And then there was something else that happened, and I was like, who is booking this shit? It was terrible that night. And I was like, how is this the same company that booked that first night? There's just such a quality of drop, just stupidity. If you're going to have a drum match, tell us what that means and incorporate a drum in the finish of the match. If a guy's worried about a conspiracy, can we not know what the effing conspiracy is? If you're going to have an occult finish, go back and look at the Undertaker tapes. How does a guy lose on an occult? If you're having an occult character with an occult finish, how does he effing lose? Have him win the match and make it mean something for the guy. How's that? So weird. It was just so bizarre.
The Roman Reigns match was good, but I was just like, I literally thought Daniel Bryan was going to win when he was in it, because I was like, this gives me WrestleMania 30 vibes.
Well,
Edge is Batista, Roman's Randy. Like, you wanted to see somebody beat Roman, and I was like, they put Daniel Bryan in it. Daniel Bryan's winning this match.
Yeah.
And the big story was it, and I got into that mark out moment for some weird reason. Finally, all three of them had to quit wrestling due to a health issue, and now they are here as the main event.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they stole that damn show.
Well, night two. I mean, but again, triple threats. As a worker, triple threats are horrible.
Oh, you hate them.
Yeah,
you hate to work them.
They make
you hate to work them.
They make no sense. They're hard to do. I don't know. But also that Cesar Romero, is that his name? The bald guy with the spinning airplane finish or whatever. What's his name?
Oh, Cesaro.
Love that guy. That was a fucking great match too.
That was a great match.
Yeah, and that's a great finish.
Wish they'd done something with it, man.
I know. We even said there that this is going to be the highlight of this guy's year, and they're not going to do anything else with this guy. And that was pretty much, from what I hear, that's what happened. And they didn't know. Dude, the guy's, he looks like $1 million. He looks unique. He's really tall and muscular, but he's bald.
You could have a great match with Brock Lesnar with him.
Yeah, and the spinning fucking airplane spin and the fucking big swing. Dude, it's gimmicky. My brother used to do BMX bikes. His best trick was the thing called a quick spin, where he went around in a circle. The crowd every time went crazy when he did that trick. It's easy. Kids like seeing shit spin. Anyway. Well, yeah, brother, it was great talking to you, man.
Much. Absolutely. I want to finish up on one thing. What do you see wrestling now is? Do you see it as pro wrestling, or do you see it as sports entertainment?
Ric Flair once said the guys who made it then couldn't make it now, and the guys that have made it now couldn't have made it then. I think it's changed. I think pro wrestling exists in little town arenas and VFW halls and bingo halls and church basements. For better or for worse, pro wrestling exists on the small time, and what we're seeing on television is something called sports entertainment with bad comedy skits, terrible acting, great camera angles, giant jumbotrons, big crowds, professional
wrestling god,
professional television presentation, pyrotechnics, but it's style over substance. Like you said, we were just talking about Cesaro. What did they do with that guy? That guy hit a home run at WrestleMania, and he was rewarded with a big pile of shit. They buried Bianca Belair after she won the main event at WrestleMania. So they have a hard time figuring out what they're doing, and I feel like they're self-imploding, but I felt like that for the last 20 years. And I think the spirit of pro wrestling, you're talking about foreign objects, you're talking about bleeding, you're talking about manager interference, you're talking about male managers, you're talking about women's matches, you're talking about feature matches, comedy matches, hardcore matches. If you find them on the independent level and they're good quality guys going at it, you're going to find pro wrestling and some really fun stuff. It's the only sport where you can go and change the outcome of a match. You can sit there as an audience member and affect what happens and what you see. It's tremendous entertainment. It can't hold a candle to the presentation of this polished TV product, which is fantastic. But the substance is not pro wrestling. It's just a weird action skit that resembles pro wrestling. But like for a million reasons that we've said during this podcast, they keep shitting on the sport, and eventually people are just not going to care about the sport at all. And the ratings show that.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, man. Vinny, I appreciate you doing this, man. Is there any last minute shout outs you want to do? You want to plug in some of your social media accounts? I know you got a big movie coming up.
Yeah, we make movies now, and we incorporate pro wrestlers into them, and sometimes in pro wrestling fights. One's called The Hike, and let's see if we can see this without showing my underwear. That's the movie on Amazon Prime right now, The Hike. That's me and the beautiful Candy Thompson. And then this movie up here, WJHC, is about to be released on Amazon Prime and other sources and across the world and all that stuff. And you can check. We've got 4 other movies we're making about the Smoky Mountains, and these are fables, morals to the story, cautionary tales, horror comedies, campy fun things, and you can catch all of that on bigandfunkyproductions.com. We're making another movie with another company. We're making a horror movie called Evil Tacos, which is going to be out at the end of this year.
You got to premiere it on a Tuesday.
That's a great. Thank you. That's a great marketing angle. Got it premiering on a Tuesday. But But yeah, so Big and Funky Productions. You can look up Vinnie Vineyard on Facebook. I'm old, so I don't do a lot of the others. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, but Twitter is useless unless you are very famous. And so I'm basically, I live on Facebook and YouTube. Our YouTube is kind of the hub of everything. BigandFunkyProductions.com.
Also, guys, the links will be below this episode. Vinny, I appreciate you having this chat with me, man. This was really awesome. Having great pro wrestling talk. I mean, it's so good to have a wrestler and a wrestler perspective, because I'm on so many wrestling podcasts every other week, and people literally are still mad at me for when I say the Young Bucks are really not my cup of tea. And they just like, what is wrong with you? And I'm just like, you will see. Just listen to what I have to say on it, and you will see the reasons. Like, man, it's crazy. But guys, I appreciate this, guys. This was Buzzing with Marlo, guys, and I appreciate it. Check out all our links below. Get your merch. Do what you got to do. Like and subscribe to the pages, man. Thank y'all, and have a great rest of your day.